Let's not talk about time. Every surface you want your covering to stick to. Yep, we're brushing this stuff on. The upside of it, the only weight you're adding is, as far as heat activated adhesive, is only where it's needed. This has a grain to it. You want to go lengthwise with the grain on the fuselage, lengthwise on the wing and the stabilizer. I find a number 11 X-Acto on the carpet quicker than scissors. So there is my bottom piece. It doesn't hurt the carpet either. Blade just runs across the fibers. There are two sides to this. The side next to the plastic is a bit of a flatter side. This side's a little bit shinier. I'm going to put that side out. I have my iron set on low, just below quarter from low to high, where I can almost hold my hand on it. I did do the sub rudder, the bottom of the rudder. I have it cut out, getting ready to put the spruce lamination on that. Wanted to do the rudder also. Comes into contact with the ground. It's drying over here. Using the T-pin fence method also on that. Should be ready to go on tomorrow. Let it dry overnight. I'm not going to do a full-on covering how-to, but I'll show you how I cover, and it'll be the same for all the components on the plane, the order that I cover, and how I cover. Then I'll just keep you updated as I get things covered. I start from the bottom, then I have a seam, and then I'll do the sides. So the side seam will lay over the bottom seam. Hides the seams better. Sides will come up, come over the top, top will go over the sides. So bottom to top is the order I cover. On a wing or a stabilizer, any flying component, I'll do the bottom, wrap up over the top, and then the top back over. So I want no seam exposed to oncoming air, is the idea of that. So when I cut this piece out, I cut it about 1/2 to 3/4 inch extra. And what I have here is, first I iron down up here at the front, and then I stretch it lengthwise. And you can lay it down, and you can tell by the wrinkles showing up that you're laying it down straight. Then I pull it across in the middle, iron a spot down. Then I go halfway from the middle to the back. I've been ironed down front and back. Iron spot down each side. Then I split that up and that up. Then do the same up here. Iron on here, stretching sideways. Iron on halfway from here to the front and halfway from here to the middle. What I have at this point now is I've went over the entire edge and just ironed down all in between those spots. You can already see it's hardly a wrinkle, pretty taut. I have not put an iron in the open bay, not even on these cross members. Then what I do is I use scissors. It's just, I can do it accurately. The razor blades tend to wander for me. It's just what works best for me. And I go down the seam and I cut that overlap. I'm looking for a little more than 1/8 inch just to cover my frame here. And then this side piece is going to cover the same amount over. So I'll have about 1/4 inch total overlap. So I've already cut this side. Haven't trimmed this side off yet. Anyway, here's the waist from this side. So not much waist, just enough to stretch it. And after I cut this side off, I'll iron this down. All this is still at low heat. I'll go ahead and cover the sides and the top. So basically I have a stretched tube of covering around the fuselage. At that point I'll crank up the heat, not super hot, but whatever this can take. It's not near as much as like monocoat or oil cover. And I'll do the seams again. Let them cool. I'll do them in sections, let them cool. If you heat the whole thing, you'll be heating the seams, it'll creep. Then I don't use a blowgun, I'll use an iron, and when I shrink this, I will never get back to those seams that I've heated up and nailed down, so to speak. So that's my method. I'm going to continue on with this, and I'll show you the fuselage when I have it covered. Here's what it looks like when I trim it and iron the edges down. So fairly tight right now already. Something to point out is I didn't balsa lock the entire frame for a couple reasons. One, I want to put balsa lock only where I need it and focus, like just on this bottom piece, so I don't miss anything and I don't put it where I don't need it. And the other reason is now when I do this side, I've ironed this edge down. I have to brush this balsa lock on the sides, but I also have to come back up over to here where this piece is going to overlap. And the other reason is if I do the entire frame, when I'm ironing down these sides here, we'll be getting my iron in that balsa lock. It'll get on my iron and then I'll get it on the covering. So that's where I'm at right now. Like doing the end like this here, I just do it like a Christmas present. I had the extra around here. I did a cut in each corner and then folded over the corners. And then when I do the sides, I'll overlap the same way and the top. Already has a different sound to the frame also as soon as the covering goes on. And there's all my waste from this bottom piece here. It turned out nice. certainly an area where you would want the toughness of spruce. It's going to come into contact with the ground every time it lands. Here's where I really start fussing. The seam that's overlapping onto the covering. This piece was fussy overlapping this way onto the bottom piece. Now this top piece is going to overlap to both side pieces. It's not hard to have a covering job that is shrunk nice and tight, or to have some nice looking collars. But what sets apart a really good covering job is always going to be the seams. So coming up this side, when I put this side piece on, like I said, it had to overlap the bottom. So this seam was way fussier than this seam. Yeah, I had to put the balsa lock on every longeron and cross member and all the sheeting, and then across the top here, and then cut it the right measurement so you get this kind of overlap. But these seams are way tougher. If I go too far with the balsa lock, I'm going to have glue smeared out onto the covering here. If I don't put enough, I'll have an edge that'll be lifting up. So nice seams is what will always separate a good covering job from a great covering job. Yes, it's time consuming, but Guess it comes down to what you want. So I got a ways to go here. Just showing a little bit of what it takes to do a really nice covering job. Time. With weather like this, I have plenty of time. They call this lake effect. Still have to take care of the horses. That's a lot of brush work. Just for the top piece. Uh-huh. Fuselage is covered, still not shrunk, just all the seams nailed down. I have my colors picked out. Red, black, and white, using the black cover light. The red and white are light span. I have some ideas as far as the scheme, but the way I do a covering job is I got a general idea and I play with it as I go along. This is that covering tube around a structure like I'm talking about, and it is now ready for shrinking. So I'll shrink it and show you that. Here's what it looks like, just applied, seams nailed down, everything's trimmed. It's kind of a big deal on the fuselage because the covering is functional. It's a stressed skin structure. By that, I mean the covering, the tension on the covering is providing torsional strength. Watch this when I flex it. It's not there yet. You can see the wrinkles that come in when I gently twist the fuselage. So the balsa structure in compression from the rubber band is strong enough to support that, but as far as the twisting action of the rubber motor, it would splinter to pieces. So big reason why I fuss with getting this laid down with as few wrinkles as possible on the fuselage, and I nail the seams down, and then I shrink it with the iron, and I don't put any heat back on them seams. If you reheat the seams, yeah, it shrinks, might look okay, but it'll creep and then it will relax, especially out in the sun, and you won't have the torsional strength of the covering on the fuselage. Before I shrink the open bays, I clean the glue off my iron from using it around the seams. put it up on high, use an iron cleaner. That's what comes off the iron. I'm applying heat and watching the color. It'll turn a darker color when the heat is about right. Go beyond that and you'll actually blow a hole through there, but I'm not even close to that. I'm a third of the way up, closer to half maybe. And staying away from the edges. So I have this side raised off it. And then I blow on it, cool it, and you'll just, so I'm just taking the wrinkles out. By holding the edge up, it's both sides, both ways. So I am kind of just precisely taking it to a point where it just tightens. And I do that because it seems like the first time you take it out in the sun, the first day outside, the seams won't go anywhere, but it will relax the open bays. If you shrink it hard and fast, you won't have any shrink left. So then when you touch it up, it tends to hold. So you can see I got a bit of a wrinkle right in there still. Not quite there on this bay. Tilt this side up. Put a little bit of heat. Blow on it. So in a controlled fashion, I am just taking it to a point of shrunk taunt. Not quite there yet on these two bays. Touch more heat. Blow on it. Shrink it when you blow on it and cool it down a little quicker. So that's the point, spot right there, that I shrink my covering the first time. When I get to an area where I have sheeting, I'll shrink it just like a bay, open bay first. Just get that covering to shrink, and then the second time I heat it, I rub it down to lock it down. Do that one more time, a little heat. If you rub it down right away as you're putting heat on it, it'll tend to bunch up a little bit. I want it to shrink from seam to seam here, shrink across that opening, then rub it down. Another place with sheeting. I'm actually not even really touching this. Get that shrink action first. Even blow on it. Then rub it down. Lock it down. It is amazing after you shrink it, the torsional strength, the twisting strength of the structure. It's not a wrinkle that shows up now, and I can feel that stiffness in the fuselage. Obviously, I don't want to do any damage to it, but there is me applying some pressure to it. No give whatsoever. I'm playing around with some designs here. I added a little more to this bottom point here. Playing with the square diamond. But I think I like the taller diamond better. Had to cut another. This diamond is asymmetrical, so I had to flip the template over. That one's no good. Left side, right side. Everything needs balsa lock. I just brush it on there. They temporarily kind of glue themselves down in place on the edges. After it dries, they'll peel right off. What side? Little piece of alignment tape. This takes time. A little inspiration here. I have the rest of my colors figured out. I'm going to be a white wing with black and red wingtips.
Suppose that'll work.